Master Kyogen has been meditating for 30 years. 30 years of sitting in silence, 30 years of wrestling with impossible riddles, 30 years of feeling like everyone else got the joke except him. He's done, finished, burned out. Today he's sweeping temple grounds, in the weight of failure heavy in his hands. Dust and broken tiles scatter across cold stone. One piece skitters forward, strikes hollow bamboo. The sound cuts through 30 years of seeking like a blade. Everything stops, his breath, his thoughts, the entire universe of Kyogen the Seeker. Gone. He drops his broom, tears streaming, and writes, "At one stroke I have forgotten all I knew. No practice is needed. This very moment is it." This isn't legend, it's fact. The transmission of the lamp, the Blue Cliff record, all record this exact moment. But what Kyogen experienced, it breaks every framework we use to understand reality. What if everything you think you know about enlightenment is what's preventing you from recognizing it? Welcome to Satori, the awakening that makes no sense until it's the only thing that does. So what actually happened in that temple courtyard? According to Kyogen's own account, preserved in classical Zen literature, nothing mystical occurred. No visions, no cosmic downloads, no divine interventions. The tile broke, made a sound, and suddenly the question that had tortured him for decades became meaningless. The seeker dissolves, what remains was never absent. Wherever I walk, no traces are left, and my behavior is not governed by rules. What makes this story unshakable? Other authenticated masters verified it. Master Yangshan heard Kyogen's poem and declared, he has truly seen his original nature. His former teacher, Master Isun, reportedly wept. These weren't sentimental reactions. In Zen tradition, only someone who's moved beyond seeking can recognize when seeking genuinely stops. But Kyogen's case reveals Satori's core impossibility. How do you teach someone to stop seeking without giving them a new thing to seek? The sixth patriarch Huineng faced this exact problem. When students begged for awakening techniques, his response was recorded in the Platform Sutra. If I tell you what it is, it becomes my understanding, not yours. Master Huangpo was direct. The mind which seeks is precisely the mind that obscures. In other words, what you're looking for is what's looking. This paradox appears in every authentic Satori account. Dogen, founder of Soto Zen, described his breakthrough. To study the self is to forget the self. Body and mind dropped away. I realized that practice and enlightenment are not two different things. Notice what he didn't say. He didn't gain special knowledge. He didn't achieve a higher state. He recognized what was present when the mental activity of seeking temporarily stopped. Shunryu Suzuki, who brought Zen to America, put it simply: enlightenment is not some kind of excitement, but simply seeing things as they are. Modern teacher Brad Warner had the same recognition. It wasn't that I understood some cosmic truth, it was realizing I'd been asking the wrong question. The wrong question being, how do I get enlightened? The recognition, there's no separate I to get enlightened. Alan Watts, who brought Zen to the West, captured this paradox perfectly.
And when you come to the point that nothing you can do is right, suddenly there is a flip in consciousness, which is called in Zen Satori, S-A-T-O-R-I, or sudden awakening. And at that moment, the observing self, the self which comments on oneself all the time, the self which obstructs, dissolves and disappears.
The more you try to catch hold of this moment, the more it slips away. Satori is the sudden realization that you were never separate from what you were seeking. But here's what nobody warns you about. This recognition can shatter unprepared minds. The ego structure that suddenly sees through its own transparency doesn't always handle the discovery gracefully. But what happens when you put Satori under a microscope? Dr. Judson Brewer stares at brain scans that shouldn't exist. For years, he's been studying advanced meditators at Yale, watching what happens inside their minds during deep contemplative states. What he discovered broke everything he believed about consciousness. The default mode network, the brain region responsible for the sense of me, completely shuts down. This network normally burns 20% of the brain's total energy. It's what's active when you're planning, worrying, remembering, essentially when you're lost in the story of yourself. During profound meditative states, this network goes dark. It's as if the sense of self temporarily disappears, Brewer explains. The meditator reports pure awareness, without anyone aware. But here's what shocked him about Zen practitioners reporting Satori. The default mode shutdown doesn't happen gradually. In people describing sudden awakening experiences, it appears to occur instantaneously. One moment, normal self-referential brain activity. The next, complete neural silence. At Brown University, Dr. Willoughby Britton documented similar findings. Her research on sudden gains in meditation reveals that some practitioners report dramatic, permanent shifts, occurring in discrete moments rather than slow development. These aren't temporary altered states, Britton notes. They describe a fundamental change in how they perceive the nature of consciousness itself. But here's where the machines hit a wall. Brain scans can show neural signatures of selfless awareness. They can demonstrate that the sense of separate self has biological markers. They can prove these markers can be suspended, but they cannot measure recognition itself. Think about it. How do you scan the moment someone realizes they were looking for something they already are? You can scan before, you can scan after, but recognition, it happens in the gap no machine can reach. The machines hum, the screens glow, but when awareness recognizes itself, there's nothing left for them to record. This isn't a failure of technology, it's the nature of what we're investigating. The tile didn't cause awakening, it shattered the mind seeking it. Here's the dirty secret even enlightened masters won't admit. Two monks stand before the fifth patriarch of Zen. Both claim to understand the nature of mind. Both have dedicated their lives to practice. Both speak eloquently about awakening, but only one actually gets it. Master Shengxiu, the senior disciple, presents his realization. The body is the Bodhi tree. The mind is like a clear mirror's stand. At all times we must strive to polish it, and must not let the dust collect. The community is impressed, sophisticated wisdom, deep understanding of the path. Then Huineng, an illiterate rice pounder, responds, Bodhi originally has no tree. The mirror also has no stand. Buddha nature is always clean and pure. Where is there room for dust? Game over. Shengxiu's understanding was still operating within the framework of someone who needed to maintain enlightenment. Huineng recognized that what they were pointing to was never actually obscured. Recognition isn't something to gain, it's the end of trying to gain. This case, recorded in the Platform Sutra, exposes the authentication nightmare. Both monks had genuine insight, both demonstrated contemplative mastery, both could teach effectively, but their realizations were qualitatively different. One understood how to polish awareness, the other saw that awareness was never tarnished. Traditional Zen developed brutal testing methods to catch these distinctions. The Gateless Gate, one of Zen's most important koan collections, was designed specifically to trigger Satori, or expose false understanding. Master Wumen, who compiled these impossible puzzles, warned, to realize the way, you must pass through the barrier set up by the patriarchs. To attain this subtle awakening, you must completely cut off the mind road. In other words, thinking your way to enlightenment is exactly what prevents it. Master Yunmen once struck a student who gave a perfect textbook answer to a koan. "Your understanding is correct," he said, "but you're still trapped in concepts." Master Linji was famous for shouting at students who spoke philosophically about emptiness. "Show me emptiness," he'd demand. "Don't tell me about it." But even these methods failed regularly. Philip Kapleau, founder of Rochester Zen Center, received transmission from his Japanese teacher. Years later, he realized, "I had mistaken a profound shift in perspective for complete awakening." Robert Aitken, another prominent American teacher, described similar discoveries. "What I thought was enlightenment at 30 looked quite different from 60. The authentication problem cuts deeper. Entire Zen schools disagree about what constitutes genuine Satori. Rinzai emphasizes dramatic breakthrough experiences. Soto maintains that sitting meditation itself expresses awakening. Some traditions require specific recognitions. Others dismiss all experiences as irrelevant. Each school claims authentic transmission. Each has produced undeniably wise teachers. Yet their criteria are completely different. Here's the ultimate verification paradox. The moment you create objective measures for Satori, you've turned recognition into achievement. The moment you systematize awakening, you've recreated the seeking framework that Satori dissolves. As Zen tradition puts it, only a Buddha recognizes a Buddha. But who authenticates the authenticator? But when authentication fails, people die. Andrew Cohen's student sat in silence as he screamed at a woman for showing grief over her father's death. When she flinched, he made her stand in front of the group for hours as punishment for spiritual weakness. To them, this was compassion training. To outsiders, it looked like psychological abuse. For decades, Cohen taught as an enlightened master. He'd had powerful awakening experiences. He spoke brilliantly about non-dual awareness. Thousands considered him authentic, until his entire organization collapsed amid allegations of manipulation, financial exploitation, and cult-like control. Cohen later admitted, "I confused awakening with being awakened. This distinction matters more than life and death. Having Satori experiences doesn't create a permanently enlightened person. It reveals what consciousness actually is when seeking temporarily stops." But the mind's tendency to turn recognition into spiritual identity can poison the very clarity that was recognized. Master Hakuin documented this trap in brutal detail. After his first major Satori, he felt invincible. "I thought no one in the past 300 years could have accomplished such a breakthrough." He'd walk through town thinking, "These people don't realize they're looking at a living Buddha." When his teacher dismissed his realization, Hakuin crashed into what he called Zen sickness. His hands shook. Sleep vanished. The man who thought he'd conquered suffering couldn't get out of bed. But this collapse revealed deeper truth. Hakuin realized his Satori had been genuine, but his interpretation was contaminated by ego. The recognition itself was authentic. The story about being enlightened was delusion. Modern psychology now recognizes this pattern. Dr. Britton's research documents spiritual emergence syndrome, the psychological crisis that often follows profound contemplative experiences. The psyche struggles to integrate recognition that transcends normal categories. Without proper support, people develop grandiosity, paranoia, or complete dissociation from reality. The spiritual marketplace makes this worse. Social media rewards dramatic enlightenment claims. Teachers build careers on awakening stories. Students seek experiences rather than understanding. This creates what researcher John Wellwood called spiritual bypassing, using spiritual concepts to avoid psychological maturity. So how do you recognize authentic Satori versus sophisticated delusion? Genuine awakening, according to every verified account, makes people more ordinary, not more special. They don't claim enlightenment. They don't need recognition as awakened. They function in normal life without maintaining any particular state. As the saying goes, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. The difference? After Satori, there's no one who thinks they're enlightened. Authentic Satori doesn't make you a Buddha. It makes you human again. And yet that's precisely why it's so dangerous, because even the mind that glimpses its own absence can turn that into a story about being special. The final twist will blow your mind. After examining historical records, brain research, authentication failures, and psychological dangers, what can we actually say about Satori? Here's what we know. The phenomenon is real. The descriptions span centuries with remarkable consistency. The neurological effects are measurable. The psychological changes are lasting. But here's what remains unknowable. Whether any individual's claim represents authentic Satori. Whether our descriptions capture what actually happens. Whether we're even studying the same recognition the masters pointed to. And this limitation isn't a bug in our research, it's a feature of what we're investigating. Because Satori, according to every account, dissolves the framework we use to evaluate experiences. Alan Watts put it simply, awakening is not a thing, it is not a goal, not a concept. It is not something to be attained. It is a metamorphosis. There's no one left to get enlightened, and yet here we are, watching, wondering, searching. The ultimate evidence-based conclusion: Satori cannot be proven because it dissolves the framework of proof, cannot be achieved because it reveals what was never absent, cannot be understood because it transcends the understander. Yet it remains the most thoroughly documented impossible experience in human history. Every shred of proof points to recognition that exists beyond evidence. Every verification method validates something that cannot be verified. Every explanation explains why explanation misses the point. But maybe this failure is the most important discovery, because it suggests that what Zen masters have pointed to for 15 centuries exists in the gap between what we can know and what we can be. The tile didn't cause Kyogen's awakening. It revealed what was present when the mental activity of seeking temporarily stopped. That revelation cannot be captured by any method that assumes a separate investigator studying an external mystery. The more you grasp at it, the further it slips away. Maybe that's the only clue we'll ever get. Because Satori isn't a mystery to be solved. It's the recognition that the one trying to solve mysteries was itself the mystery. And that recognition happens when it happens, usually when you've completely given up trying to make it happen. The investigation ends where it began, with more questions than answers, but maybe that's perfect. Comment below. Tell us about the moment your mind went completely quiet. Maybe you were washing dishes. Maybe someone died. Maybe you were stuck in traffic. What happened when seeking just stopped? Subscribe to Buddha's wisdom for more explorations into consciousness and the experiences that change everything. Hit the notification bell. Some recognitions are worth investigating together. And remember, if you think you've figured out Satori from watching this video, you've completely missed the point. And missing the point might be the most enlightened thing you've done today.